when I discovered that my $750,000 lottery ticket had vanished from my purse, and my daughter-in-law Melissa was suddenly able to afford a new BMW. I thought I was losing my mind. But when she convinced my son Jeremy that I was becoming senile and needed professional help, I realized she'd stolen more than just my winning ticket. She'd stolen my dignity. What she didn't know was that I always kept my receipts, and that little piece of paper would prove to be worth more than the lottery ticket itself. Before I share this shocking story, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Queen of Scars, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive. My name is Ruth Blackwood, and at 74 years old, I learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones plotting to destroy you from the inside out. I've lived in the same small town for 50 years, raising my family and building friendships that have lasted decades. I'm known for my sharp memory, my meticulous record keeping, and my habit of saving every receipt, stub, and document that crosses my path. My late husband Frank used to tease me about my filing obsession, but it saved us money countless times when we needed proof of warranties, tax deductions, or insurance claims. My son Jeremy is 38, a good man who works as a high school math teacher. He married Melissa 5 years ago, and she seemed like a wonderful addition to our family at first. She was charming, attentive, and appeared to genuinely care about our family traditions and relationships. Melissa worked as a dental hygienist, making decent money, but nothing extravagant. She often complained about their financial struggles, student loans, the mortgage on their modest home, the challenges of living paycheck to paycheck while trying to start a family. I felt for their situation because I remembered being young and financially stressed. Frank and I had worked multiple jobs in our early years to build the comfortable life we eventually achieved. So when Melissa would make comments about wishing they could afford nice things or take real vacations, I understood her frustration. Every week for the past 15 years, I've bought the same lottery tickets at Morrison's corner store. 3 scratch-offs and 2 Powerball tickets, same numbers I've played since Frank passed away. Our anniversary date, his birthday, and the kids' birthdays. It's become a routine that brings me comfort and a small thrill of possibility. Old Pete Morrison, who's run the store for 30 years, always jokes with me about my retirement plan and asks if I'm going to remember him when I win big. I always tell him that when I win, I'll buy something nice for everyone who's been kind to me over the years. The winning ticket came on a Tuesday in March. I'd stopped by Morrison's for my usual purchases, chatting with Pete about the unseasonably warm weather and his grandson's baseball season. I bought my regular tickets, tucked them carefully into my purse in the special compartment I always use, and drove home to check them after dinner. 4 of the 5 tickets were losers, as usual, but the 5th one, a scratch-off called Golden Fortune, made my hands shake when I realized what I was seeing. $750,000. I checked the numbers 3 times, then 4 times, then called Pete to ask him to verify the ticket over the phone. Ruth, honey, I can't tell you that information over the phone, but if you're seeing what you think you're seeing, you need to get down to the state lottery office immediately. And Ruth, yes, Pete? Congratulations. I barely slept that night, lying awake and planning how I'd handle the windfall. I'd help Jeremy and Melissa with their financial struggles, of course. Maybe pay off their house. Set aside money for the grandchildren I hoped they'd have someday. I'd donate to the church and the local food bank. I'd finally take that trip to Ireland that Frank and I had always planned but never managed to take. But first, I needed to be smart about the process. I called my longtime attorney, Barbara Wells, first thing Wednesday morning to discuss the best way to claim the prize and minimize the tax implications. Ruth, that's wonderful news. We'll need to set up some meetings with a financial advisor and an accountant to structure this properly. But first, you need to keep that ticket absolutely secure until we can get to the lottery office. I agreed to meet with her team on Friday, giving us time to prepare all the necessary paperwork and strategy. In the meantime, I put the ticket in my safe deposit box at the bank, photographed it with my phone, and made copies of all related documents, including the receipt from Morrison's showing the date, time, and transaction details. Thursday evening, Jeremy and Melissa came over for our weekly dinner. I was practically vibrating with excitement about sharing the news, but I decided to wait until after we'd met with the lawyers and claimed the prize officially. No point in getting everyone's hopes up if there were complications. But I was so happy, I couldn't help but be a little more generous than usual. I sent Melissa home with extra leftovers, slipped Jeremy an extra $50 for gas, and promised I'd have exciting news to share with them soon. What kind of news, Mom? Jeremy asked, smiling at my obvious excitement. The kind that's going to change things for our family in wonderful ways, I said, giving him a hug. Just be patient a little longer. Friday morning, I woke up early and headed to the bank to retrieve my lottery ticket before the meeting with Barbara. But when I opened my safe deposit box, my heart stopped. The ticket was gone. I searched through every document in the box twice, then 3 times. I called the bank manager, convinced that someone had made an error or that the ticket had been misfiled somehow. Mrs. Blackwood, I can assure you that no one has accessed your box since you visited on Wednesday afternoon. You're the only person with access to this particular box. But I knew I'd put the ticket there. I remembered the moment clearly, sliding it into the manila envelope with the copies, placing it in the metal box, hearing the click of the lock. I drove home in a panic, searching my house frantically for any sign that I'd somehow brought the ticket home instead of leaving it at the bank. I tore apart my bedroom, my office, my purse, anywhere I might have absent-mindedly placed a piece of paper. Nothing. That afternoon, I had to call Barbara and tell her I couldn't find the ticket. Ruth, are you absolutely certain you won? Sometimes people misread scratch-off tickets, especially when the numbers are small. I showed her the photos I'd taken of the ticket, the receipt from Morrison's, and my detailed notes about the winning numbers. This is definitely a winning ticket, Barbara confirmed. But without the physical ticket, there's no way to claim the prize. The lottery commission requires the original ticket for verification. I was devastated, but also confused. I've never been absent-minded or forgetful. I keep meticulous track of important documents. The idea that I'd somehow lost or misplaced a $750,000 lottery ticket was incomprehensible to me. That weekend, Jeremy and Melissa came over for Sunday dinner as usual. I was still upset about the missing ticket, but I decided not to mention it unless I found some new lead or evidence. But during dinner, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Melissa was wearing a new diamond bracelet that looked expensive. Really expensive. That's a beautiful bracelet, Melissa, I commented carefully. Is it new? She glanced down at her wrist as if she'd forgotten she was wearing it. Oh, this old thing? I've had it for ages. Just haven't worn it in a while, but I knew that was a lie. I noticed jewelry, and I'd never seen that bracelet before. Moreover, Melissa wasn't the type to own expensive jewelry she didn't wear regularly. She was practical about money and typically wore the same modest pieces every day. Jeremy, didn't you say last week that you were worried about making the car payment this month? I asked. Jeremy nodded. Yeah, money's been really tight. But things are looking up. Melissa got a bonus at work, and we're managing better than we were. A bonus large enough to afford a diamond bracelet that looked like it cost several $1,000s. Monday morning, I drove to Morrison's corner store to ask Pete if anyone else had tried to claim they'd bought a winning ticket from his store. Funny you should ask, Pete said, scratching his head. I had someone come in Saturday asking about surveillance footage from last week. Said they'd won big on a ticket they bought here, but needed to prove when they'd purchased it. My heart started racing. Who was it? A young woman. Blonde, pretty. Said her name was Melissa something. She seemed to know you, actually. Mentioned that you'd recommended my store to her. Melissa. My daughter-in-law had gone to Morrison's asking about surveillance footage for a winning lottery ticket. Pete, did you give her any information? Well, I couldn't give her the surveillance footage. That's private. But I told her she'd need to contact the police or get a court order if she needed video evidence for some kind of legal matter. Did she say anything else? She asked about your regular ticket purchases, actually. Wanted to know if you always bought the same types of tickets and whether you'd been in recently. I thought it was a little odd, but I figured maybe she was planning a surprise for you or something. A surprise? My own daughter-in-law had been gathering information about my lottery ticket purchases and asking about surveillance footage that might prove when a winning ticket was bought. The pieces were starting to come together, and the picture they formed was horrifying. That afternoon, I called Jeremy and asked if he and Melissa could come over for coffee. I needed to see Melissa's reaction when I mentioned the missing lottery ticket. They arrived within an hour, both seeming relaxed and happy. Melissa was wearing a new purse that looked expensive, and Jeremy mentioned that they'd been looking at new cars. Mom, you sounded upset on the phone, Jeremy said. Is everything okay? I took a deep breath. I need to tell you both about something that happened last week. I bought a lottery ticket that I thought was a winner, a big winner, but now I can't find it, and I'm worried I might be losing my memory. The reaction was immediate and telling. Jeremy looked concerned and sympathetic. Melissa looked shocked, but something in her eyes seemed more like fear than surprise. Mom, what do you mean a big winner? Jeremy asked. $750,000, I said, watching Melissa's face carefully. Melissa's expression shifted through several emotions rapidly: surprise, concern, and what looked like calculation. Mrs. Blackwood, that's a lot of money, she said carefully. Are you absolutely sure the ticket was a winner? Sometimes those scratch-off games can be confusing. I checked it multiple times. I even called Pete Morrison to verify. But now it's vanished from my safe deposit box, and I can't understand how that's possible. Jeremy reached over and patted my hand. Mom, maybe you should see Dr. Martinez about this. Sometimes stress can affect memory, and since Dad died, you've been under a lot of pressure. Jeremy, I'm not losing my mind. I know what I saw, and I know where I put that ticket. Melissa leaned forward with what appeared to be gentle concern. Ruth, honey, memory issues can happen to anyone as they get older. My grandmother went through something similar. She became convinced that people were stealing from her. But it turned out she was just misplacing things and forgetting where she put them. The way she said it was so smooth, so reasonable, that I could see Jeremy nodding along with her logic. But I have photographs of the ticket, I protested, showing them the pictures on my phone. Melissa studied the images. These are pretty blurry, Ruth. And honestly, it's easy to misread those scratch-off numbers when the print is so small. Pete Morrison confirmed it was a winner when I called him, but he didn't actually see the ticket, right? He was just going by what you told him over the phone. I was being gaslit, expertly and systematically. Melissa was planting seeds of doubt about my mental state while positioning herself as the caring daughter-in-law who was concerned about my well-being. Mom, Jeremy said gently, I think Melissa's right. Maybe you should make an appointment with Dr. Martinez. There's no shame in getting checked out, especially if you're having concerns about your memory. Over the next few weeks, the campaign intensified. Melissa would call me daily, ostensibly to check on my well-being, but always steering the conversation back to my confusion about the lottery ticket. Ruth, I've been researching early-stage dementia, and false memories about financial windfalls are actually quite common. The mind sometimes creates these scenarios as a way of dealing with financial stress or feelings of insecurity. She'd bring Jeremy articles about age-related cognitive decline, always prefaced with loving concern about my mental health. I just think it's important that we get Mom evaluated professionally, she'd say, for her own safety and peace of mind. Meanwhile, I noticed more changes in their lifestyle. Melissa had several new outfits that looked expensive. They'd upgraded their cell phones and mentioned looking at vacation packages. Jeremy seemed happier and less stressed about money, but when I asked about the improvement in their finances, he credited Melissa's better budgeting and some unexpected bonuses at her work. The final straw came when Melissa suggested that I might need to consider a more supportive living environment. There are some beautiful assisted living communities that specialize in memory care, she told Jeremy during a Sunday dinner at their house. Places where Ruth could have professional supervision and wouldn't have to worry about managing her finances or remembering to take medications. I don't need assisted living, I said firmly. I'm managing perfectly well on my own. But Mom, what about the lottery ticket situation? What if you start misplacing other important things, like your checkbook or your medication? They were building a case to have me declared incompetent and removed from my own home, all while spending money that I increasingly suspected was stolen from me. That night, I made a decision. I was going to fight back, and I was going to prove that I wasn't losing my mind. The next morning, I drove to Morrison's corner store and asked Pete if I could review my receipt records from the past month. Sure thing, Ruth. You know I keep copies of everything for the accountant. Pete pulled out a file folder containing duplicate receipts from all transactions. I found the receipt from the day I'd bought the winning ticket, Tuesday, March 15th, at 3:47 p.m. 5 lottery tickets purchased, including one Golden Fortune scratch-off. Pete, this receipt proves I bought that ticket, right? Absolutely. Shows the date, time, exact games purchased, and the transaction number. If you had a winning ticket from that purchase, this receipt would be part of the evidence needed to claim the prize. What would happen if someone else tried to claim a prize on a ticket that was purchased with this receipt? Pete looked troubled. Well, that would be fraud. The Lottery Commission investigates all big winners, especially if there are any questions about the ticket's origin. They want to see purchase receipts, interview the store clerk, maybe even review surveillance footage. Surveillance footage. The same footage Melissa had asked about. Pete, would you be willing to preserve the surveillance footage from March 15th if I need it for legal purposes? Of course, Ruth. Are you thinking someone stole your ticket? I'm thinking someone wants me to believe I'm losing my mind so they can get away with stealing my ticket. That afternoon, I called Barbara Wells and explained my suspicions. Ruth, if your daughter-in-law has stolen your lottery ticket and is trying to gaslight you into believing you're mentally incompetent, that's not just theft. That's elder abuse and fraud. We need to act quickly before she tries to claim the prize. Barbara contacted the State Lottery Commission to report the suspected theft and provide them with my receipt and photographs of the ticket. She also filed a police report and requested that Morrisons preserve their surveillance footage as potential evidence. The Lottery Commission took the matter seriously. Within a week, they contacted me to report that no one had yet claimed the prize for the Golden Fortune ticket sold at Morrisons on March 15th, but they'd flagged the ticket number in their system to prevent fraudulent claims. Mrs. Blackwood, if someone attempts to claim this prize without proper documentation proving they purchased the ticket, they'll be arrested for fraud. We take these cases very seriously. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for Melissa to walk into it. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, Jeremy called me in a panic. Mom, Melissa's been arrested. They're saying she tried to claim a stolen lottery ticket. This is insane. She wouldn't steal anything, especially from you. But she would, and she had. The Lottery Commission's investigation revealed that Melissa had attempted to claim the $750,000 prize using a photocopy of my ticket and a forged receipt. When questioned about the discrepancies in her story, she claimed that I had given her the ticket as a gift, but that I was suffering from dementia and wouldn't remember the transaction. The surveillance footage from Morrison's showed me purchasing the tickets alone on March 15, and the store receipt with my name and signature provided additional proof that the ticket was legally mine. Melissa had made one crucial error in her planning. She'd assumed that I was too old and confused to effectively fight back against her manipulation. She'd underestimated both my mental sharpness and my meticulous record-keeping habits. The receipt that proved I'd purchased the winning ticket also proved that Melissa was lying about everything else: my mental state, her version of events, and her claims about my giving her the ticket. During the police investigation, they discovered that Melissa had been accessing my purse during her visits to my home, looking for the ticket after overhearing me mention my exciting news about something that would change things for our family. She'd found the ticket in my purse, stolen it, and then launched a systematic campaign to make me believe I was losing my memory so that if I ever figured out the ticket was missing, no one would believe my accusations. The expensive jewelry, clothes, and lifestyle upgrades she'd been displaying were all purchased with credit, based on her expectation of claiming the lottery prize. When the fraud was discovered, she faced not only criminal charges, but also massive debt from her premature spending. The legal proceedings were swift and decisive. Melissa was convicted of theft, elder abuse, and fraud. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution for the emotional distress and legal costs she'd caused. Jeremy, to his credit, was genuinely shocked by his wife's actions. He believed her claims about my mental decline because he trusted her and because her gaslighting had been so skillful and systematic. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he said during one of our first conversations after Melissa's arrest. "I should have believed you. I should have supported you instead of questioning your memory." Jeremy, she was very good at manipulation. She made her lies seem reasonable and caring. But this experience taught me something important about the difference between supporting someone and enabling their abuse of others. I claimed my lottery prize 6 months later, after all the legal proceedings were completed. The experience had been traumatic, but it had also revealed strengths I didn't know I possessed. With the lottery money, I made the donations I'd originally planned to the church, the food bank, and several local charities. I helped Jeremy pay off his student loans and put money aside for my future grandchildren's education. I took that trip to Ireland, finally fulfilling the dream Frank and I had shared. But the most meaningful use of the money was establishing a legal aid fund specifically for elderly people who've been victims of financial abuse by family members. Too many seniors are targeted by relatives who assume they're easy victims, I told the local newspaper when announcing the fund. My case shows that age doesn't equal vulnerability, and that meticulous record keeping can be the difference between justice and victimization. The fund has helped dozens of elderly people recover stolen assets and hold abusive family members accountable for their crimes. Each case reminds me that my experience, while traumatic, led to something positive that extends far beyond my personal victory. Melissa was released from prison after serving 18 months of her sentence. She and Jeremy divorced while she was incarcerated, and she moved away from our town immediately upon her release. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she struggled to find employment due to her criminal record and the publicity surrounding her case. Jeremy has slowly rebuilt his life, focusing on his teaching career and working to repair our relationship. He's more cautious now about trusting people completely, and he's become an advocate for elderly people in his community who might be vulnerable to family manipulation. I learned that love without boundaries isn't really love, he told me recently. It's just enabling bad behavior. I should have questioned Melissa's claims more carefully instead of just accepting them because I wanted to believe her. I'm 76 now, still living independently in my own home, still buying my weekly lottery tickets at Morrison's corner store. Pete Morrison always grins when he sees me coming. Here comes our famous winner, he'll say. You planning to make me rich and famous again anytime soon? I always tell him that lightning rarely strikes twice in the same place. But you never know. What I do know is that my experience taught me the importance of trusting my own perceptions, keeping detailed records, and never allowing anyone, even family, to convince me that I'm too old or confused to stand up for myself. The receipt that saved my case was just a small piece of paper that most people would have thrown away. But it proved that sometimes the smallest details can make the biggest difference when someone is trying to steal not just your money, but your sanity and your dignity. Melissa thought she could gaslight me into believing I was senile while she stole my lottery winnings. Instead, she learned that some grandmothers are sharper than they appear, and that underestimating someone based on their age can be a very expensive mistake. The ticket was worth $750,000, but the lesson was priceless. Never let anyone convince you that you're too old to fight for what's rightfully yours.